and welcome back to Blue Jays Today, where holy crap, guys, all of the reports about Pete Alonso and potentially signing with the Blue Jays just came out in the last hour. We're going to dive into all that of what just transpired. Multiple reports coming out from multiple different people saying very similar things. We thought we'd hop on this right now, just cover it all, give our 2 cents. Do we believe it? Do we buy it? And is it going to happen today? Before we get into it, though, guys, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to Blue Jays Today. I'm your host, Adam Peddle.
And I'm your host, Nicholas Playlog. And, Pete Alonso would change things, folks. Like, Pete Alonso would actually change. That moves the needle for me. You want to talk about how we get back to being a competitive ball team, how we make it back to the playoffs? Freaking Polar Bear Pete, somebody who could, at will, hit 35 home runs in a down year, might I add. In his ceiling, that number could go up to 50. We had heard after the Anthony Santander signing that the Toronto Blue Jays weren't done, that more moves were coming. That was from Hector Gomez, that was from John Morosi, that was from various other credible sources. Alonso is one hell of a move, and right now, that's all anyone is talking about.
Literally. So let's break it down what happened in the last hour. So first things first, we got to give a big shout out to Doug over here. Now, Doug, if you don't really know who he is, I was starting to learn who Doug was a little bit. So if you guys don't know already, we're partnering up with the Nation Network, and they have another affiliate brand called Blue Jays Nation. And Doug used to write for Blue Jays Nation. And I'm in a group chat with a lot of these guys, and I'm asking them, hey guys, like, how for real is this? Well, we've heard from a couple guys in that group chat that Doug wouldn't say something just to say something. He would only say something if it was credible and it had some weight to it.
Had some legs
to it. So Doug came out with this tweet right here that got everybody, scrambling to their Twitter phones. He says, Scherzer, 1 year, 16 million. Alonso, 3 years, 75 million. It's more complicated than that. Opt-out, options, incentives, bonuses, etc. But I get the sense that it's all wrapped up and could be announced today even. So that was the tweet that got everyone going. Now, when I first read this, and a lot of people first read this, you probably think, well, I can't really buy into this. I don't really want to buy into this right now because, no disrespect to Doug, but like, what have you been right before? Are you John Heyman? Are you Jeff Passan? Et cetera, et cetera. However, he does feel very confident. We asked him, how confident do you feel? 9. Okay. So he feels very confident, not 10, but that something could happen today. What do you make of this, and what are your kind of thoughts around this?
All of that sounds good. Now, I did actually, reading this for the second time, I did just realize that he didn't actually say the Toronto Blue Jays, so I'm assuming and hoping that he is referring to the Toronto Blue Jays with that, because can you imagine? It's like, oh yeah, to the Mets. There's
exactly.
Alonso.
And they get Scherzer.
But no. I mean, like, we've been tied to both Scherzer and Alonso at this point. The Toronto Blue Jays have. And there were a lot of, speculation around the fact that if they get Alonso, or, if they want to get Scherzer, they got to get Alonso, and kind of like, vice versa type thing. So it would make sense if they're really going balls to the wall here to go out and to get both of them. And to Doug's credit here, those numbers sound right. Like, everything checks out right there. Scherzer, if he was to sign a 1-year deal, would be around $16-17 million. That's been the reports on the street. Yeah. And similar to Alonso, right? We heard that the Mets were offering him a 3-year for 70. So if you want to get him to come over here, well, you got to add a little bit more. There's an extra $5 million for you. So it would make sense. Like, everything's checking all the boxes right here. Obviously, though, we don't want to jump to too many conclusions just because we've been down this road before.
100%.
I mean, we've heard fucking John Morosi tell us that, Ohtani was on a plane to Toronto and it didn't work out. So, I mean, I hear where Doug's coming from, and I think why this has more weight right now is because he's not the only one.
Yeah, exactly, right? He's not the only one. We wouldn't be going live just based on Doug. Again, no offense to Doug. We wouldn't be going live just based on that, but a lot of you in the chat are saying it right now. There's other people like Mark C. Healy that came out and talked about it. Right. Let me just flip it over here. We're on a different stream service right now, and it takes a little bit longer for me to flip over to what I'm showing you guys. But Mark C. Healy, we brought him up yesterday in our live stream. He apparently by Wardy isn't creditable, but there's also more sources to this. Mark C. Healy saying, I'm hearing Pete is close to signing with the Jays. Don't know the specifics. And then you've also got, and let me know if you guys can see this, Dan Bartles right now saying that there's a sense that a 3-year, $75 million contract between Pete Alonso and the Blue Jays is close. The Mets last offer was 3 years, $68 to $70 million. So this happened like these two tweets, bang, bang, right after each other. About 30 minutes after you had Doug coming out and talking about this. So right now, everybody's kind of thinking there's some sort of deal in place.
Yeah.
It might be close. It might be imminent. Not 100% sure lockdown because, I mean, like we literally just talked about just a couple hours ago on this channel, you know, the Mets are still kind of in the wings. Like, does Pete Alonso want to see if the Mets want to match this offer? So there might be a little bit of time before we get a definite deal done.
Well, it sounds to me like these guys have the same or similar sources, right? And they're being told right now that it's getting close. Now, I do need to bring this up because we've seen this happen before where the Jays get used as leverage.
Right.
Could there be a reality where somebody from New York Mets camp or, from Pete Alonso's camp, is reaching out and telling kind of these, secondary reporters that things are heating up and things are looking really, really good, having them come out and say this to kind of apply the pressure right now to the New York Mets. It's not impossible. It's not impossible.
It's not.
And I need to make that very clear to everyone because, I mean, look, we're in the exact same boat as you guys right now. We're crossing our fingers. We're hoping that these guys know something that we don't, and we're hoping that their sources are legit in what it is that they're telling them. I have no doubt in my mind that they are hearing this from someone somewhere. The question is, does that guy know what he's talking about, and does that guy have something that is, real?
Well, when there's smoke, there's fire. Also, guys, I just want to let you know we do have Jim from Ball Cap Sports in here. He's going to join us in just a moment. But before we bring it in, we just got a tweet from Oriel Cohen. They just tweeted this out right here. Let me flash it over for y'all. This is, again, doubling down onto the same narrative that we're talking about right now. They say, rumor is that Pete Alonso and the Blue Jays are close to a deal. Again, the same rumor, just another mouth that is talking about this. Sad day for Mets fans in some way if it comes about. So again, there's our fourth kind of source of somebody who's a journalist who is somewhat credible. We have now multiple people saying this. And again, when there's smoke, there's definitely fire.
There is something to this. I think we all need to, we do, because I was getting extremely hyped up roughly half an hour ago, and I still am, but I need to stop myself from jumping too quickly into this thing because, again, I wouldn't be shocked if later down the line it turns out all this was a leverage play. Alonso goes to the Mets for $85 million, and bing bang bop, like there we are. We're out again. We lose again, right?
That would suck.
We have done this before, so everybody needs to have a cautious optimism about them right now. And we're going to be here following along with this story as it develops. To help us out in the coverage right here, let's welcome in one of our good buddies, phenomenal coverage in his own right, Jimmy, Ball Cap Sports. Welcome in, dude. How are you doing today?
I'm good, guys. How are you? How are my audio levels, by the way? How are we sounding?
You sound pretty good, chat. Let us know how Jim sounds in the chat right down there below. But Jim, thank you for making the time unexpectedly to just hop on here with the boys, because we know that you're a very busy man, very, very big family man. But I'm glad that we can kind of pick your brain. What are your kind of reactions right now? I know there's a lot of, again, not certainty, of course, but what are your reactions kind of right now with everything breaking?
So I'm torn. I'm trying to stay grounded. Let me put it that way. The idea of grabbing Pete Alonso is exciting, but we're not across the finish line. I would say I feel like we're in the red zone, to steal a football analogy. I feel like we're in the red zone, and now it's just a matter of like getting across the goal line. There's so many people out there from both sides, Blue Jays and Mets side, and you guys have been running through it, that are talking about a potential deal, that it's just so much smoke that I feel like we're getting close. I don't know if we're as there as some people want to be as bold to say we are, but I feel like we're getting close, and that's where I'm staying grounded, because I love the idea. I love the idea of all that pop in that lineup. That's why I'm Alonso over Bregman. There's so many options for the left side of the infield. And Pete at first base. Who knows? Maybe they put Vladdy at third. If that's how this goes, maybe they give Vladdy more reps at third. If it doesn't work, Pete and Vladdy just kind of job share between first base and DH. They go back and forth. So I'm hopeful they get this done. It would really turn the offseason around, right? After how disappointing and depressing it was for so long. It would be an amazing get. Back-to-back weeks. Santander last week and Pete Alonso this week would be.
Can you believe it that Santander
phenomenal.
was literally this Monday? That's how long ago.
Oh my God, it wasn't last week.
It wasn't even
crazy.
last week. Last week we were getting literally 6 days ago. We heard that Roki was a Dodger.
Right, we got Saki.
Stood around.
Yep.
I completely agree with you, Jim. Like adding Pete Alonso, I think that's why I'm getting excited. Like adding Santander was obviously very exciting because it was the first. Finally, somebody took our money for once. But then once you came grounded, you realize, is Anthony Santander going to be the guy that's going to get us to 88 wins? Not alone, no. But adding a Pete Alonso, well, now we're talking, and maybe you add a pitcher of some caliber to give some depth in that rotation. Add a 6-man to the rotation. Yeah, it definitely works out. But I'm glad you're kind of seeing what we're seeing. Like it's not 100% right now. We're kind of just still being skeptical. We're kind of just waiting around. And there's some other reports that are coming out right now that are kind of countering these ones, saying no, it's not true. So we just have to be patient. We got to wait a little bit right now.
It's the old, how close to the finish line are we? I think there are a lot of people hearing some things, and maybe this is all originating from one guy, and and a lot of other people are running with it. But I always get back to how close to the finish line is the source, because there are guys in the room kind of sources, and there are guys that know guys in the room kind of sources, and then there are guys that are just, in orbit of the team. And the farther away you get from the finish line or the epicenter of the whole rotation of this thing, I think it just gets there's a little more volatility to the prediction. So I think there's somebody, or maybe a couple of somebodies, that are maybe in that they're in rotation around the situation, and they've heard some things that make them feel really good about the possibility. So I think that's where we're at. I want to add on though real quick, and then you guys add your thoughts to this. The whole Max Scherzer thing that popped up yesterday. I know that there are, and I've received some DMs from some Jays fans that don't really love the idea of Max Scherzer as the play for the Jays rotation. And I don't know if I love it either, but I see how it fits, and I can see how it would help the team, and how Max, from Max's perspective, it feels like the Blue Jays, especially if they get Alonso, feels like a great fit for him. Because what do we think the over-under is on Max Scherzer starts next year? Maybe, 14?
I was saying if we can get 100 innings from him, that'd be a win. Right. But
the Blue Jays rotation is almost set up perfectly for this, because you've got Yariel Rodriguez, who could easily go in and out of that rotation spot if Max goes down. So they have a guy, a swing man. And if Max is not there at the end of the year, Alek Manoah is trying to work his way back. You could see Jake Bloss. Maybe by the end of the year, he is got to get innings because he's pitched so well down in the minors potentially. So it feels like Scherzer is a nice option for right now. There's a decent fit there. And I like the idea of bringing a guy into the clubhouse that just has a bulldog mentality. And I hope it rubs off on enough guys, and that they can feed off of that, and it can take their game to a new level, because Max is just a beast.
You're right. I mean, I think I love the idea of seeing Max sitting next to Gosman, Manoah when he eventually comes up, Bowden Francis. Like that in itself is, if you're going to get anybody just to give you innings, because at the end of the day, like, we're not asking him to be Max Scherzer 2011. We're asking him to be Max Scherzer, give me 120 innings and know how to pitch a game. Can you manage a game? Can you game call? Like, can you just get us through and give us a chance to win? That's all we're asking. We're not asking him for either, like you said, give us 14 starts. Give us half the season. Because we're anticipating at some point you will break down. But give us the innings and give us that veteran mentality. I love it. Again, not my money. Maybe it's an overpay for a lot of other people, but it ain't my money.
Yeah.
Could he turn Bowden Francis? Could he turn Bowden Francis into a little clone? Can he teach? Can he turn Jake Bloss into a little clone? Can he teach Jose Barrios to just be angry? Like, can he just let those other players feed off of his energy?
Yeah, I agree, Jim. I mean, hell, any way we can get it, because yeah, like Scherzer, how many more wins is he really going to win us? I don't know. Maybe it's a domino effect thing that you don't really see, because if you do run and people have been talking about this, you've run a 6-man, because we do have a lot of veteran pitchers, then maybe it helps everybody a little bit better, a little bit more rest. You pitch a little bit better every time you start. So it's one of those things that you may not see in the stat line, but you can see when it affects everybody else, right?
How would you, Jim, like with the reports about New York and the fact that they are not necessarily being as aggressive with Alonso as, you know, maybe they were with some other guys, and they've kind of taken, or it feels like, you know, they're pumping the brakes a little bit, you know, going on the back seat. Do you believe that? Is that a leverage play? Like, where are you at with all that stuff? Because we've never really seen Steve Cohen not go hard on a free agent before, and especially somebody who has meant as much as Pete Alonso was meant to, you know, the entire New York Mets, you know, fandom as a whole.
I think David Stearns is a line in the sand kind of guy in this situation. Maybe under a previous, maybe under Billy Epler or any of the other previous GMs, Steve Cohen could have said, "I want Pete. Bring Pete back," and the deal would be done. The deal would have been done a while ago. And now we're in a spot where David Stearns is looking at it and doesn't want to commit to Pete beyond just a couple of years. And if you're Pete Alonso, puts you in a tough spot. Now, everything we're hearing with this whole potential Blue Jays, all the rumors that are flying around, is that it's a short-term deal with the Blue Jays too. Because if you're Pete Alonso, you don't want to go back into the free agent market in 3 years. And because if you're getting crushed now, you're going to get crushed then, because you're going to be 3 years older, and you may not be able to play first base. You may truly be a DH in 3 years. At least now you can still fit in as somebody's first baseman. So I think Stearns is looking at the future of the team, looking at other possibilities as time goes on. You know, if I've put, I can't remember if I was talking with you guys, if I was talking with Wardy about this, but, you know, the Mets may feel like we're not making a decision on Pete until we know if Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is going to be a free agent next year or not. And if he is not going to be a free agent, if the Jays get an extension done, we'll step our game up for Pete. But if in a couple of weeks this Vladdy imposed deadline passes, then Pete's gone. We're not bringing Pete back because we want to have a shot at Vladdy next offseason.
So do you think maybe, because John Heyman said this on MLB Network today, because he was saying that this could inevitably get down to like late February into spring training. It could be a Matt Chapman or a Cody Bellinger situation where they're waiting this out, Scott Boras and Pete Alonso. Maybe that factors into it as well, like the whole Vladimir Guerrero Jr. extension deadline, or like maybe the Mets, maybe Pete knows this. Maybe Scott Boras knows this, and they're waiting it out to see what's going to happen based on Vladdy.
Very well could. I think that there's definitely a logical line of thought, a path that you can go down when it comes to Pete, his time frame, Vladdy. I mean, last year we had really pitchers talking about how important spring training is, right? Jordan Montgomery, Blake Snell. Hitters, Matt Chapman hung out there for a while. He had a great year. Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, many years ago, were out there late into February. They had great years. So hitters, not as important as pitchers, because pitchers are already throwing, and they're getting ready. They're getting ramped up so that when they get to spring training, they can continue the progression. Hitters, they might be hitting off a tee. They may be working on some things, but I could see, you know, each guy's got their number. They need 50 at-bats. They need 100 at-bats. And if they can get that, they're fine. And that's only going to come in spring training. That's not going to happen in a cage, in a pitching machine, in a factory right now. So for Pete and any other position players, lingering doesn't really hurt them like it does for pitchers.
I agree. So it could very well be a while. I know things are heating up right now and that there's a deal in place, but again, we can't really know for sure everybody. There's a lot of different reports out there, but it's exciting. I mean, regardless of how you feel of whether it's happening or not happening, this is the best feeling in the entire offseason, is that moment right before, and Blue Jay fans know this all too well, that moment right before somebody signs is the best adrenaline rush ever.
Yes.
Ever. And I love it so much, but hopefully we can actually get across the finish line because of what this means to the Blue Jays organization.
Yeah. I mean, again, like you said off the top, right? Off season's been rough pretty much up until this point. It's starting to get better with the Santander signing and the fact that they got Hoffman, all that stuff. But, Pete Alonso, to me, it's just different in the sense that not only do I think that, the production that he would provide is massive, but I think that that's the move that takes Blue Jays fans from, maybe we'll be okay, maybe not, to I really want to watch baseball next year. I want to watch that team. I want to watch Pete Alonso and Santander protect Guerrero. I want to see what Bo Bichette's going to do in a contract year. I want to see how all these pieces come together. Like, that to me is such a swing of not only just, production, because let's face it, you're going to get 35 home runs from that guy minimum, assuming he's healthy, but there's also a sense of momentum shift to the Toronto Blue Jays and just their offense and their lineup as a whole. And that is something that I think not only that team, but this city desperately needs.
Yeah, Pete Alonso in this lineup would I think you have him in there with Santander, you have him in there with Vladdy, you have him in there with Bo. If you can get a little bit more out of Springer, if you can get some more offense out of Varsho, I mean, the Blue Jays still have a lot of work to do with this lineup if they want to compete in this division. So that's their motivation to try to get the deal done and try to push this thing across. And if Pete's dragging his feet, if Boris is dragging their feet because they're trying to wait for a certain time, that's where Ross and Mark got to get aggressive, got to get creative and push this thing across the line, get it done, because what you don't want to have happen is you don't want someone to come out of nowhere and grab Pete. Like, let's say all of a sudden the Giants are like, you know what? Yeah, I know we already signed a qualifying offer player, but you know what? I've just been given the green light from our owner to go spend. We're bringing him over here because he's going to be our first baseman. You don't want another team to change their mind or, have a Thursday morning meeting and all staffer and come to the realization we need something else. So I think they should still be motivated to try to get a deal done, because the lineup, it doesn't compete with. I mean, the Orioles lineup is much more dangerous. The Yankees lineup is more dangerous. You've got to get to a spot where you can compete with at least those two. Boston is only going to get more and more dangerous as the years go on and their young players continue to mature. They got work to do. They have work to do if they want to compete. And if this is Vladdy's last season, you try to load it up and go for it.
That's the thing, right? Like, we're talking about Pete Alonso on a short-term deal, but, the feeling is like it's game-changing. It's game-changing for at least this season, right? Because I'm with you where I think if Pete Alonso signs with the Jays, it's a 1 year with a player option, or two, right? And we're loading up. But it's exciting for at least this 1 year where we can push it all in, go for it with Bo Bichette, with, Vladdy, because, let's be frank, like, they ain't keeping both of them. They're gonna try and keep Vladdy. Bichette's probably good as gone at this point. It's debatable, but probably good as gone. So you want to load up as much as you can. See if you can bounce back from a terrible year last year, and maybe get the fans back in the seats.
Actually, while we have you here, Jim, I know that we have a pretty strict timeline with you. You got to dip it too, but quickly, your thoughts on Bo Bichette? Is he as good as gone in your opinion? He's leaving.
I think so. I think that's what the Andres Jimenez trade was half about.
Yeah.
I think Bo's going to be asking for $200 million this offseason. The Blue Jays are going to say, hell no. And they'll have Andres Jimenez as the shortstop. And then second base, just like we have a lot of options on the left side, we have a lot of options for second base too, right? You got Will Wagner. Leo Jimenez could play second base maybe. If they you've got or Elvis Martinez right now, I think I saw is now a top 10 second base prospect. He's moved off of third base.
Right.
So a lot of options for second base. So, yeah, I think that Bo is as good as I think he's as good as gone.
It's gone. So that's the thing, right? We got to load up when we're all kind of anticipating a bounce back too. Are you anticipating a bounce back from Bo? Because if we bounce back, then hell yeah, like we got to load up.
Yes, last year was a down year. He has proven himself to be a great hitter, and there were injuries that kept popping up, so he was unable to really get it going. He's been a slow starter before and been able to turn it around. So I expect him to have a bounce back, and I would love for him to have that bounce back with guys on base or guys behind him that can knock him in, and maybe he feels like he doesn't have to do as much. I feel like a lot of times these guys, because these are people, and they put pressure on themselves. How much pressure is Bo putting on himself to be the top producer? Well, now if it's not just you and Vladdy, it's you, Vladdy, and a couple other new guys, does that help him? If you're Pete Alonso, if you're not out here stressing, pushing yourself because you're in a contract year and you know the money's on the line, because maybe you have a multiple year deal with the Jays, can you just lock in and play like Pete Alonso? Not play like Pete Alonso, times 10. Just go be Pete Alonso. So I'm hoping that you get those guys. Pete would need a bounce back. Bo would need a bounce back. And if you're putting them together, I feel like they could get that done. I feel like we could see that.
Yeah. So let me ask you then quickly, Jim. Let's assume for a second, fantasy land here, they do go out and they lock in Pete Alonso. I don't know the term. I don't know the incentives. I don't know anything. But he's on the team for at the very least 2025, and he's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you see this Toronto Blue Jays team with Santander now, with, obviously the last year Bo Bichette, maybe the last year of Vladimir Guerrero Jr.? We certainly hope not. Where do you see them kind of finishing off in 2025? Is that a potential playoff wild card roster? Are we still, too many wins away? Like, what do you think?
I think it is a team that is definitely a wild card team. Remember last year? So last year's kind of interesting. We gotta remember that the Blue Jays underperformed drastically. Like, do we think that's, if you were to run last season back, just start from scratch, simulate the season 100 times, do you think that's how it would go 100 times? No. So you got to figure, and now the Mets have to be careful, because the Mets had a season that was on the other side of the coin, worked out really well for them. They had an amazing run the last 2 months of the season. I started calling them the team of destiny because there was no other explanation for what was going on. And you cannot, if you're the Mets, rest on, well, what we were last year. That's we're at least going to be that. We're going to be that plus.
Right.
I don't think you can take that to the bank, because there are some that would argue, yes, you got Soto, but Pete Alonso's production is gone from the team as of this current moment, and Severino is not back. So there are some pieces there that are missing. Back to the Blue Jays side of things. I would expect from a similar sort of a similar thought process there, that the Toronto Blue Jays should be, just if you ran the team back from last year, we could see an improvement in wins. You add Anthony Santander, you add potentially Pete Alonso, and maybe another starter that comes with Pete Alonso. Let's call it Max Scherzer. Even if Max is only good for one or two more wins than like Yariel Rodriguez would be good for. Let's just throw a couple wins his way. This is a wild card team. This is a team that is probably fighting for the top wild card. And if the Yankees have any injuries in their rotation, I think this is a team that could fight for the division. With the bounce back year that you would be looking for from Bo Bichette, with things sort of balancing a little bit from year to year. I'm not saying the Blue Jays would win the division, but I'm saying they could compete for it. And if remember this, the roster they have today, depending on how things are going, what they do at the trade deadline could impact things. You could find a situation where the Toronto Blue Jays, let's say they're 4 games behind the Yankees for the division, and we're creeping up on the trade deadline. All of a sudden, the Toronto Blue Jays are showing that they're a contender for the division. maybe they all of a sudden get in trade conversations for Dylan Cease if the Padres haven't traded him. There's you got to keep in mind those sort of like landmark trades that could, if the team's good enough and warrants it and deserves it, that could take the team up a notch for the last 2 months of the season. And if they're in it, I think they would make that move, especially knowing maybe this is the last Bo, maybe this is the last Vladdy year. You got to push. You maybe have to push the chips. And similar to how last year we were talking about how this could be the only year with Juan Soto. Yankees got to go all in, right?
Right.
The Toronto Blue Jays, this might be the last year with Vladdy. Until that extension is done, kind of need to operate that way and push.
Exactly. I can't agree more. And I like the idea that if we just go get Pete, we just go get Scherzer, then that raises our ceiling just a bit. Because I think we can all agree right now. I mean, maybe there's a slim reality right now, where, maybe they win a division, but that reality is so paper thin, right? Yeah. But if they go at these guys, maybe can get done. Jim, I know you got to go soon, so we'll say goodbye to you right here. Thank you for taking your moment to come on here and giving your 2 cents on the Blue Jays, Pete Alonso, and Max Scherzer, and et cetera. So thank you, Jim. We appreciate you.
Yeah, guys. Thanks for having me.
Take care, man. Everybody, go check out Jim Ball Cap Sports on YouTube, guys. Phenomenal coverage over there. Talks every MLB team, everything that goes on, transactions, prospects, trades, you name it. He has it, guys. Good friend of ours, good friend of the channel, and certainly knows what it is that he's talking about. Shout out to the over 1,000 people in here right now. If you haven't already done so, hit that like button and please subscribe to the channel, everybody. We're trying desperately to get up to 30,000 subscribers. We are getting closer, getting very, very close. But if you've been watching us for a little while, or this is the first time and you're enjoying the coverage, then please hit that subscribe button. It really does mean the world. Shout out to John right here for becoming a starter member as well. W's in the chat for him, man. We appreciate everybody who has, become a member, everything like that. If you're just joining us, let's refresh everybody as to why we are doing this live stream in the first place.
Real quick, another shout out to Willard with the Dono 699 saying, would you guys trade Bo for Arias, legit leadoff, and move Jimenez as shortstop, both expiring deals? I mean,
honestly, maybe.
Why not? I mean, they're kind of the same player, but but Arias does play a lot of first. He could play second. I don't know.
It's close, actually.
It's close.
I need
it's
to
not
really
a bad
dive
idea.
into that. That's not the worst idea that I've ever heard, though, man.
No, I like it.
Thought experiment right
Thank
there.
you, Willard.
If you are just tuning in and you want to know why the hell we're live right now, there was a multitude of reports that popped off roughly half an hour ago talking about Pete Alonso and the Toronto Blue Jays. Now, right after the Anthony Santander signing, it was reported that the Blue Jays were going to go out and they were going to do something big. And Pete Alonso was still, in fact, on the table. You heard stuff from Morosi. You heard stuff from Heyman linking the Toronto Blue Jays, saying that it's between them and between the New York Mets. And now, all of a sudden, today, you're hearing a bunch of stuff from a ton of different sources. None of them are Jeff Passan, which means that we have to take this with a grain of salt. He's the only one that we can say wholeheartedly he knows what it is that he's talking about. However, that being said, we got Doug coming out here saying that deal's effectively done, or at the very least, it is on the table right now. It's wrapping up. And, he said Alonso 3 years, Scherzer 1 year. Now, the math here, or I guess the numbers in general, they check out. Okay,
right.
Like this makes sense. Do I believe that a deal is 100% complete right now? I don't know. In fact, I would argue probably not. I think that these numbers have been floated, and I think that things are getting close. And I love the way that Jim put it, in the sense that we're in the red zone right now. We're there. We are there. Now we got to punch the ball in.
And sometimes turnovers happen in the red zone. Let's be real, right? Sometimes things go awry in the red zone. So that's why I don't want to say any definite here, everybody, as we're looking at all this. But you're looking right here. It's a rough estimate, right? With opt-outs, options, incentives. There's things that could be determined later on. But Doug said that, and everybody was kind of like, okay, well, how do you know? What's your source? Da-da-da. And then what happened a little bit later was you had Dan Bartles come out saying there's a sense that a 3-year, $75 million contract between Pete Alonso and the Blue Jays are close, right? That obviously beats the Mets offer. Now, I like what Jim said as well with his insight, that what if this is coming from the same person? That's the same number that was given to Doug, right? So that's an option right there. Mark C. Healy out here saying as well, I'm hearing Pete is close to signing with the Jays, don't know specific numbers, so maybe he heard it from a different source. And then as we were talking about right here, as we were just live, another report coming out saying Ariel Cohen saying, rumor is that Pete Alonso and the Blue Jays are close to a deal. Sad day for Mets fans in a way if it comes out about to be
now
that.
we do need to bring up the fact that there were some people in the chat talking about Johnny from Gate 14. Now he has been known to have some sources with Toronto Blue Jays before. I mean, I think he's gotten some stuff right with the like the prospect call ups and everything like that. He was coming out and saying that he doesn't think anything's done yet. So I don't know what his connection is or what type of sources he would have in this regard. But he also did say that with all the smoke that's coming, he believes that a deal is probable. And I think that's kind of where we are at the same point, that with everything that is being talked about right now, maybe there's not like pen to paper, maybe there's not a signature, maybe there's not anything like that. But like with everything that's being reported on, this isn't just coming out of fucking thin air, folks.
Right.
Like there is something here. Whether it is actually going to get across the finish line or not, that's what we need to wait on because we've been known, as the Toronto Blue Jays have been known to, like you said, fumble at the goal line here.
Yeah.
But with everyone that's coming out of the woodworks, New York Mets reporters as well, not just Toronto Blue Jays fans, but New York Mets reporters are coming out and talking about this. Like this feels legit.
Yeah, like again, I don't think there's literally Pete Alonso sitting at a table about to sign the deal or whatnot, or he's on the phone confirming the deal, like, yep, let's go. There's probably, if I were to take a best educated guess, there's probably a number being tossed around to Pete Alonso, to Steve Cohen, and there's some sort of positive confirmation like, this looks really good. Let's take a little bit moment and think about it. Like, but we thank you for your offer. Like, there's probably but nothing is confirmed. I think that's what Johnny's probably alluding to here from his source, that nobody is confirming anything right now. And if you do see something out there that's confirming it, probably take a second glance at it and question whether this is true or not, because it probably isn't until, of course, we hear from Jeff Passan or somebody big like that. Right?
Okay, so this is coming from Mockbomb right here. Again, don't know how reputable this source is at all, but he came out and said 3 minutes ago, sources, Blue Jays have made it clear to Alonso in his camp that they want Alonso. Alonso has made it clear to them he is ready for a new chapter in his career. However, I've been told nothing is close at this time, not ruling out the chances. We could see a deal get done in the next 24 to 48 hours as things move quickly in this industry, but the reports of them closing in on a three-year, $75 million deal at this moment in time are inaccurate. So so here's the thing. Now we're getting into that situation where someone's sources are lying, or they're not, or they're wrong.
Right. Yeah. And again, like, I don't know how credible Mockbomb is. He apparently popped up this year and he's gotten a couple of things right. But point is, there's a bunch of things out there that are either misleading or true. But again, I like to think of it this way, where there's smoke, there's fire. Something is going on and things are moving towards a positive direction towards the Toronto Blue Jays camp, right? I think that's what we got to be looking at this as. We're not close to a deal, but it could be happening. I mean, hell, there could be a moment where all of a sudden, oh yeah, you know what? He just signed, like literally in the next 5 seconds, or it could take days, or it could not happen. Literally anything could happen at this point, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, but I think that ultimately, we are at the very least finalists for all of this right now. And at any moment, something could happen. Can you pull up Pete Alonso's baseball savant for us just so we can all take a look at what he would mean to the Toronto Blue Jays should he come here, everybody. I mean, this is a game changer, like we've been saying in that lineup. You want to talk about somebody who would actually move the needle, it is Pete Alonso. The fewest amount of home runs that he's ever hit in a season is 34. Now, that was just last year. So, you could say that, oh, well, this is he's on the decline. I don't think that's the case at all, guys. Look at some of those percentiles. We are talking about some deep red sabermetrics right now. The guy is only 30 years old, and for a slugger like him, there's still several years left where he can annihilate that baseball. I think, across the board, bringing him in could only ever be a W.
Yeah.
Would you... I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but are you forgiving Ross Atkins if Alonso comes here?
I've said this before and I'll say it again. sure, I'll be very happy that he's come here. And I think that Ross would have absolutely cooked getting Anthony Santander and Pete Alonso and hell, who even knows, even Max Scherzer. But the point still remains for me. If it doesn't work, you're out. Like, that's what it comes down to, because clearly in your entire tenure here as the GM, you haven't won a playoff game. And if they don't make playoffs again, or even if they make playoffs and they get swept again in wild card, you're out again, right? Like, how many times are we going to throw the Hail Mary with Ross Atkins at the helm? I think this is kind of it, right? For him to save the job, he's got to connect in the end zone, which is you got to win the wild card series. You got to go to the ALDS. You got to do better than you've ever done in your past tenure here with the Toronto Blue Jays. So that's what it comes down for me.
Yeah, ultimately, like, signing Pete Alonso and Anthony Santander and Hoffman, and, having the offseason that you had, if you're capable of doing it, like, massive W and, like, mad respect, but results don't lie. And you're right. Like, we do need to see wins ultimately to assure his job. But the one thing I would say is, like, if that happened, then you cooked this offseason. You really, really did cook this offseason, if, of course, you're capable of getting Alonso across the finish line.
Now, I want to bring this up, too, because we actually did bring this up with Jimmy. But this is a question right here, literally by underscore, saying, why is everyone convinced that Alonso is coming here means that Vladdy's leaving? I don't get it. And here's the thing. Him coming here doesn't mean that Vladdy's leaving, because Pete Alonso's deal is most likely going to be on a 1 year, maybe 2 year. I know the rumor out there is 3 year, but you never know.
Could be some opt-outs in there too, right? That's something that he brought up.
Like a 1 year, 2, or like a 1 year with second year opt-out, third year opt-out player option. So no, it doesn't mean that Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is leaving at all. It means not at all. It means that this year we're going to have to figure it out with Vladdy playing some third or DH, or, Alonso playing first and DH, whatever it might be. You're going to find a way to get them both in the lineup.
I guess I also have I don't have a lot of faith, but I have faith in the management enough that, like, come on, it's Guerrero. Like, you should know if getting Pete Alonso actually takes you out of the Vladdy sweepstakes, then they shouldn't be in them to begin with, right? Like, the Pete, of course, and I would just hope that they know that, and if the fact that they are in these Alonso sweepstakes right now, going this deep into them, should indicate that, no, actually, it's not a problem, right? Because, let's face it, that would be dumb as nails if, you bring him in and then let Vladimir Guerrero Jr. walk. Everybody knows that. We know that. And you got to hope and cross your fingers that Ross Atkins also knows that. Mark Shapiro also knows that. So I'm just, again, I'm holding out faith that the management couldn't possibly be so stupid to,
of course,
to bring in Alonso just to let Guerrero leave.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it has really nothing to do with the other. They would both be riding with them, absolutely. Even if, let's say, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. did get extended and Pete Alonso, was here for a second year, they would still try to make it work, right? I know people in here like Saul Jimenez are saying Pete doesn't want a DH. Well, that's part of the conversation that you're going to have. Of course he realizes that the Blue Jays have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. at first base. Like, of course he realizes that. So they're probably going to talk to him, well, we're going to have you at least play first 50% of the games or 60%. And then, then you'll DH the other 40. And then Vladdy's going to play a little bit of third base. And you're going to talk to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. about that. Like, there's conversations about that, right? Like, it's not like, oh, I'm not going to play first base all the time. Well, I don't want to sign with you, even though you're offering me the most money. Like, you're still going to give him an opportunity to hit 50 home runs and jack up that price for the next season, right? I think people are Michael Marino. Let me look this up right now.
Yeah.
Also, guys, I'm actively talking right now to Wardy NYN, who is if you guys know, a New York Mets YouTuber and a good friend of the channel. So we're trying to get him on right now. Just quickly give us our 2 cents on what's going on.
Michael Marino right here. This is somebody, he's a national MLB reporter, apparently 13,500 followers on Twitter. He's telling the Mets, stop believing everything you see. I don't know where Pete's going to end up, but I'd make sure to check the sourcing of some of the reporting out there. Nothing done or close to my knowledge. Okay, so he's taking the other side of the coin right now and saying, wait just a second, pump the brakes.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. You know what sucks for Doug is like he said he'd throw boiling water on himself if if he was wrong.
Is that what he said?
That's literally what he said, dude. That's what made me so confident. I'm like, Doug is about to throw boiling water on. I mean, obviously it's a joke, but like that's how confident he is.
I don't know, man. Twitter's gonna hold it to him.
Of course, we
They're
saw
gonna-
the same thing happen with the Red Sox guy.
Oh, yeah.
What's his name?
Yeah, they're gonna hold him to that if he doesn't
Of
come. I
course.
pray for Doug's skin that
Yeah.
that does not happen.
And respectfully, we asked him to come on the show. He declined because he didn't want it to blow up too much. But like I get it. But here we are. Here we are.
Here we
guys.
are, regardless, man. I mean, it was always going to blow up.
always
You
gonna blow
tweet
up.
something like that out, like it's going to blow up regardless. So yeah, that is where we're at right now. 959 people in here. If you haven't already done so, please hit the like button and subscribe to Blue Jays Today. Like we said, everybody, we're trying to get to 30,000 subscribers. I imagine if every single person in this live stream right now just hit that subscribe button, we would fly up there. Might not get to 30, but we get pretty damn close, folks. So if you haven't already done so, please do so.
Also, it was Mick. That's the guy who.
Yes.
I forgot it. I've got his name.
Oh, you didn't.
I already forgot that guy's name.
Yeah, it was Mick, dude. Beyond average Mick. Yeah.
Beyond average Mick.
Beyond average Mick, dude. He called himself the Cape Cod Insider. Long gone. I think at this
poor
point.
guy, man.
Yeah, haven't seen where. You know what? Let me take a look. Actually, let me just take a
Also,
look.
people are asking where the Alonso bottle is. We
In the
actually
fridge right now.
we put it in the fridge. It's a different bottle. We actually had the other bottle on the same night. Was it the same night? Yeah, the same night that Anthony Santander had. We're like, splitting one bottle ain't enough, so we did too. So we got a replacement just in case, guys. So.
Well, he's still out here tweeting stuff. So I mean, he's still live.
Yeah, of course. These guys still keep going. You wouldn't shut it all down.
No. I haven't seen anything about baseball though in a little while. So
no, I'd be staying away from that because wasn't he a hockey guy?
I think so. Yeah,
Probably was.
He's a big hockey guy, and then just decided to try his luck, and didn't work out well for beyond average Mick.
Also, big shout out to Greg here with a $5 dono saying not having lefties could be fine given Soto and Santander are no longer threats. But Boston lineup is scary. Devers, Casas, Duran, Yoshida all left. I hear you. I mean, yeah, for getting through the regular season, it might be fine, trying to win our division. But yeah, Boston is a serious, scary threat. But I think we're going to need a lefty regardless come postseason. That's what the trade deadline's for. And I like how Jimmy brought up Dylan Cease. Now, trade for Dylan Cease would be insane if that were to happen. But that's the lefty you need right there to really go all the way in the postseason. You need someone like that.
Quick shout out here to Renison Arrington with a $279 dono. W's in the chat for them for donating the Blue Jays today. Again, we appreciate everybody who's donated to subscribe, liked up the channel. We're waiting on or hoping that we get any more Pete Alonso news. In the meantime, it feels like now, you're getting pushback from other reporters out here, saying, wait just a second, this thing isn't done yet.
Right. And I totally get it. I mean, how it would be a dream if it happened all of a sudden, but it hasn't. So we're still going to be waiting.
And hold up. Now Doug is coming out again right now.
Here we go.
And kind of doubling, tripling down. He's pulling a little bit of a beyond average Mick. He's pulling a little bit of a beyond average Mick. He says, listen, I'm not an insider. I'm not a reporter. I'm not working the phones to dig up every little detail to write or podcast about. Turn me into a hero or villain. I don't care. It doesn't change my life at all. Just be happy. Alonso and Scherzer are going to be Blue Jays.
Oh,
so,
hell
listen,
yeah,
he's sticking to his guns right here, but he's also acknowledging, who he is, what his capabilities are. Right. So, I mean, look, this is what I think has gone on here. Somebody reputable has been going around and has given Doug, has given Ariel, has given Mark, whatever his name is, Healy. CEO. They have told them something. Somebody reputable who knows something has said something to them. And it should be someone of substance to elicit this type of reaction.
Right.
The one thing that is concerning, though, is that individual has not, or maybe they have, and these other reporters haven't done anything with it, hasn't been giving that information to other reporters, and those other reporters haven't heard anything, right? Because you would think that if actually he was a Toronto Blue Jay,
You'd hear
well, where
something.
is the John Morosi?
You'd hear
Where
something.
is the John Heyman? You know what I mean? Like, that is the concerning thing to me. It's great that these guys have all this conviction, but there does feel to be a lot of comparisons that you could draw between what we're seeing from Doug right now and what the Boston Red Sox saw from Beyond Average Mick.
And you could even, I mean, this is obviously on a larger scale, but you even see what happened with like Shohei Ohtani, where somebody somewhere in the industry planted some information to elicit a response from the masses to maybe swing a deal one way or another. Like this happens. I mean, that's a conspiracy theory, of course, but it happens. I mean, that's what happened with the whole Ohtani thing. Like there was a leakage to get the Dodgers to put the $700 million on the table and get the deal done right away.
Right.
So you never know.
Okay, so I think ultimately, I think that this all comes down to one thing, and I said this in the earlier podcast today, and I'm going to say it again. This all comes down to we need Steve Cohen to, for the first time maybe in his life, draw the line.
Just draw the line.
And back off and say, listen,
Dave Stearns, back off.
$70 million. We ain't getting, but you're not getting a cent more from us. Because if that's true, then I think we win these sweepstakes.
For sure.
You know, but you don't, that's the thing. You don't win against Steve Cohen if he is actively gunning for it. And the one hope that I really do have is that it sounds like he's not actively gunning for it. Not the way that he gunned for Soto, not the way that he went after, you know, various other free agents in the time frame that he has owned that baseball team. It feels like the commitment for him is not nearly as deep as it was with some of those other players.
I think what Jim said, and this is why we bring in other guys who are more familiar with other organizations, what Jim was saying was that apparently David Stearns has taken more of the wheel this offseason and kind of like directing this thing right now. So whereas like in past, Steve Cohen would be like, give me Alonso, I don't care. And like would just splash that money. But apparently David Stearns is kind of controlling this a little bit. So and Wardy hasn't responded back, but I'd like to hear what he thinks too. So I don't know. So maybe there's a little bit of a different play here. Shout out to Renison again for another dono saying take out the Pete Alonso bottle.
It's chilling in the fridge. We put it in the fridge right now just because it was sounding like things were really popping off right here. And if you guys remember, like the Anthony Santander signing happened kind of completely out of the blue.
Right.
Wasn't expecting it to transpire when it did. And drinking warm champagne wasn't the best.
And it also exploded. Like we have those bottles for what, like 2 months. This is a new bottle, by the way, so it should be fine. But we had those bottles for like 2 months, and both of them, when we opened them up, exploded. So,
that was a weird one. People asking for the mailbag. Let's take a couple questions. Can we do the mailbag?
I think we can. I gotta load it up. It's gonna take a little bit of time.
All right. Don't stress too much about it, everybody. That's not really why we're here in this one. But yeah, we can answer a couple questions and everything like that. Checking Twitter right now to see if there is any other updates in regards to Pete Alonso at all. Right now, it doesn't look like it, folks. I want to know who these
sources?
These sources are. Who are these goddamn sources?
And who's telling? And why? Why are you guys saying all this?
Don't use this. Is the one thing I ask. Don't use me as leverage again.
I know. I hate being used. I hate it.
Being used as leverage. I hate it. I always can hate it. You know, it's the worst feeling. It is the worst. Like it really feels like you just had not like you got used. You got used, right? It was a one-night stand, and you got used, and then they dumped you. You feel dirty,
you feel embarrassed,
gross, and embarrassed. And you thought it was something that it wasn't.
Exactly. And then they just move on to the next one.
Move on to the next one.
Like it was nothing. It was nothing.
It's like nothing to you at all. Like, God damn it.
Okay. I'm reading some of your guys' questions right now. I'll try and pull one up for y'all. If you haven't already, click the link down below. There's a Google form. That's where our mailbag is. So if you want to submit a question, have it pop up on the screen. Let us know, guys, or let us know through that form. Let's see. I mean, this one, I don't even need. This was a quick one. I don't need to pull it up on the screen. But what do you think the percentage is that you guys think we get Alonso? That's what Jarrett's asking. What's the percentage we get Alonso?
Oh, gee. Well, I mean, at this point, it's feeling a lot better than it did. I mean, I think that honestly, like, what's the percentage?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, you know what? Let me pull it up on screen.
What is
everyone in the chat, you let us know what is the percentage right now. The Blue Jays get Alonso.
Like 50 or slightly better than 50.
I was gonna say 60.
Like something around that, you know. There's still a part of me that is really concerned and worried that, you know, we're gonna get used and everything. So I can't fully buy it. I'll just say 50 and say it's a coin flip right now.
Yeah.
I'm saying it's a coin flip. We got people in the chat that are feeling a bit more confident than me. 55. Somebody's saying a third of the time, 60-ish. 100% says Jonathan. I fucking love your optimism, dude. Get ready to get hurt. Jared with 72. Yeah. Kind of, we're all in that same range. Like it feels good. It feels good. It feels right. It feels like
destiny.
This could. Well, okay, maybe. But it feels like this could happen. But nobody's ready to like lock it in or anything like that because obviously there is quite a lot of variables still going on here. I mean, we heard earlier today too. We haven't even brought this up yet, but the LA Angels were apparently like on the outside looking in on this thing. I don't know how real that is. I hope that Pete Alonso has the good sense to just realize that you don't want to go there. So I still think it is ultimately a 2-horse race between the Mets and the Jays, or, those guys are the far ahead leads.
There is part of me that is really thinking like, because this thing, they were asking John Heyman on MLB Network this morning, if this keeps on dragging out, does this favor one team or another? And it doesn't, but there's something inside of me that says that's going to favor the Mets, because it's like the more you were like, what are you waiting for? Like, what is Pete really waiting for? Obviously, he's waiting for a deal from the Mets, right? And eventually maybe they cave. Maybe there's pressure from their own fan base that's going to make them cave and go bring back Big Pete, because that lineup is very different without Big Pete. They have Big Pete. Oh man, it's gonna be much better.
I'll be honest, man. I personally don't understand why the Mets aren't doing that. Like, you just went. I mean, I get it. You spent a lot of money this offseason, right? But don't you want Big Pete protecting Juan Soto and Frankie Lindor? Like, that immediately becomes, in my opinion, a lineup that can actually rival the Dodgers, right? If you were to bring him back.
No, I agree. So thank you for the question there, Jared. We got another question in here. I believe this is from Jordan L. Let's see. Yes, I believe it is. So Jordan L is asking, this is very different, very off topic. Do you have any worries about Gausman bouncing back this year?
Yeah, I do, but not crazy worries. I mean, I think that ultimately, like last year, it was mainly we got off to the slow start. There was the spring training stuff. We were a little injured, whatever. And it's just, in sports in general, it's really tough when you're playing behind the 8 ball like that. The rhythm was just all thrown off. And ultimately, like, you just got to hope that this year that isn't the case. The one thing that concerns me about Kevin Gausman was, correct me if I'm wrong, but like, wasn't like the spin rates like all like way down? Or, like
on
there
his
was
splitter.
It was like the splitter just wasn't splitting the way that it used to.
Wasn't going horizontal break.
Like,
wasn't
there's
break.
definitely stuff to be noted there, and also too, it's not like he's getting any younger in any capacity. Like, Kevin Gausman is getting up there in age. But I guess I'm kind of holding out hope that with a good spring training, with a good off season, hopefully you don't come into the year injured. We should see more of the old Kevin Gausman.
Yeah, I mean, you can really put a lot of emphasis on the fact that he got off to a slow start. He had a 4.50 ERA and again was injured, didn't really have spring training. Then the second half he had a 2.92. That's like, vintage Kevin Gausman.
All the way back,
right? With a whip of 1.104. Yeah, and the strikeouts, I believe the strikeouts were up. Let's see, the innings. Actually, the strikeouts were down. That's right. I remember at one point he started to adjust. He actually made a big adjustment.
The splitter wasn't splitting.
It wasn't splitting, so
and he had to change up.
So he just like, well, I'm not going for strikeouts. I'm going for contact right here. So, I have faith that Gausman's smart enough and a good enough pitcher to get the job done.
Huge shout out here to Trevor with the $13.99 dono. Hey guys, I'm a huge fan and I watch every streaming video, but I want to know on your thoughts, if the Jays get Alonso, a back end starter, and one more reliever, how many games do you think? Okay, so you're saying, so you're effectively saying they get Alonso, they get Scherzer, and they bring in one more reliever. I mean, it's tough to know exactly how many games they're going to win, but I will put it this way: we are all the way back, and we are in the hunt for a wild card. Like, I think that the ceiling of ceilings, if that was the case, is that you're looking at low 90 wins. The floor is probably low 80 wins. The reality of it would probably be somewhere in the middle. And you got to hope that you're closer to that high 80, low 90 range. But I think that would be very possible.
Yeah, I think if I were to say like the general medium, like I'd say probably you're landing somewhere in the 85 to 89. 85 to 89 range. And that's also assuming that you get some bounce backs. I mean, I like what Jim said. And I've always thought this too. Like the season last year, from the Toronto Blue Jays was we hit the floor of all that range of outcomes.
Sure.
Like, that was really bad, right? And you roll that season again. Do we get 74 wins more times than not? I don't think so. I think we maybe higher 70s, low 80s.
That was in like the bottom 20% of outcomes, right?
Yeah,
like that was definitely in the bottom range for sure, right?
Exactly.
There could have been a range of outcomes, the top 20%, where we win 95 games.
Exactly,
probably,
right?
so.
Like everything goes right. George bounces back, blah, 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 blah. Like we don't have all these injuries in our bullpen. So I think that, the median here is like, with all that, what you're saying is if all that happens is like 85 to 90. Like we're back in that wild card contention with upside and downside, of course, right? There still could be a reality where we win 74 games, everyone gets injured, and that always happens. But yeah, I think we'd be happy to watch baseball next year.
Yeah, I hear you, man. Shout out to Mr. Julius with another donation, a $5 dono, saying they need to find a way to trade Springer. Removing him from the lineup is just as important as signing a free agent. Ultimately, man, I just don't see it happening. I'd be very shocked if they were capable of finding a way to trade. Well, let me put it this way. They could trade Springer, but they'd be paying for 90% of the contract. And that's not something that they're willing to do right now. So ultimately it's just, I don't think that we're ever going to get to a place where trading him makes sense, unless of course he really pops the hell off and we're not good. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, there's actually value here that we could trade away, and we're not good, so we'll do so, and we'll give them to a contending ball club. But I'd say that 95% of the time, George Springer is going to finish his career at Toronto Blue Jay.
Yeah,
and that's going to be that.
I mean, let's be realistic, right? Like, how are you going to convince anybody to take George Springer? Like, I don't want to pay for this guy anyways, right? And unless again you're literally getting him for free, and then what's the point, right? Like the next thing. So, no, there's no way. So we just gotta hope, honestly, that he bounces back to, some sort of reasonable number. Now, man, I am curious what his projections are this season.
Like what they're projecting him to do?
What Baseball Reference is projecting him to do. Do they still have those? Yeah, they do. They're projecting him to have a 240 batting average with a 712 OPS. That's kind of what I'd hope for.
Around that, yeah.
That's kind of what I'd hope for, realistically.
Like,
right?
honestly, I wouldn't even be that upset with that, to be honest. So what did he finish with last year? It wasn't great.
Last year, he finished with a 220 batting average and a 674. So they're saying he's going to end up somewhere between. He's going to end up somewhere between last year and the prior year. We had a 732 OPS. And yeah, the home run numbers fell off. He had 19 last year. They're projecting him for 19 again. So that's kind of what George Springer is. And that's a guy who bats 7.6.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's, and that's the beautiful thing about getting Pete Alonso is, that top, like, he's not going to sniff the top of the lineup anymore. Right. Because like the meat is filled up by players who are really, really good. Shout out to John Blatford with a $5 dono saying we need to shore up defense on third. We do that. Then our pitchers, who are ground ball pitchers, will do a lot better than last year. Well, how do you feel about Vladimir Guerrero Jr. over there? Because if we get Pete Alonso, that you're going to be seeing a lot of that. And that is another thing to note, everybody. Like, it is a little bit of maneuvering that the Jays would have to do, and you'd certainly be seeing Guerrero over at third base a lot more than you do now. I don't know if he'd be primarily a third baseman, or they'd kind of do some sort of cyclical thing where it's like, Alonso's kind of like first base DH, and Guerrero's kind of like first base, third base, DH, it would
kind of rotate.
It would rotate. It would be a rotation.
And I think it would also depend on the pitcher too, because you do have to account for that, right? Like Kevin Gausman gets a lot of ground balls. He used to get a lot of strikeouts, but a lot of ground balls with that split finger. And, you get a lot of righties in the league, pull side. You got left. You need a third baseman over there that really can gobble it up. And I love Ernie Clement, but he's no Matt Chapman that we've seen in prior years, especially with throwing Vladdy out there. You can't really work it. So I think based on the pitcher that you're seeing, especially, Chris Bassett too, like he's not a strikeout guy. He's a weak contact kind of pitcher. So I think depending on the pitcher, you might see John Schneider throw out a pretty strategic lineup. Yeah.
No, I agree with you, man. I think we're going to cut things off right about now, everybody. If something does break, then we are going to be back live immediately, everybody. Fingers crossed that Doug, that Mark, that Ariel, that all of these people know what they're talking about, and Pete Alonso will be a Toronto Blue Jay. In conclusion of all of this, though, we're finalists, and it could actually happen. We just got to punch that ball across the goal line, everybody.
That's right, guys. So stay tuned, everybody. We're not going anywhere. Hit that like button. Subscribe to Blue Jays Today. And as always, go Jays, go!